Hello there. So I'm going to start a new series, what it was like living in the 2000s in Seoul, South Korea. And this is all based on my true experience, so let's get started. So today I'm going to talk about the North Face craze that happened in the 2000s. So you all know what North Face is, right? The actual brand. Well, North Face was very popular in Korea in the 2000s, and this was back when North Face wasn't really that popular in the States. Well, it was, but it wasn't that popular because in Korea, it was like popular. And Korea actually literally carried North Face on its back. And I think the CEO of North Face or something personally thanked South Korea for the sales and everything. And I totally get it, because when I was in middle school and high school, we had really strict school rules on school dress codes and what to wear and what not to wear and stuff. But later on, when I was in high school, the school dress codes got a bit less strict, and we could wear puffer jackets, which we call parkas in Korean. And these parka jackets were very popular and people started to wear them. Out of the blue, one day, wearing a North Face parka, which is called the Lupe parka, was very popular in Korea. It was a craze that was happening amongst high school students and middle school students, and wearing a North Face parka or a North Face jacket was literally a status symbol, basically. And amongst these students, there was this class symbol basically of wearing a North Face parka. And not only that, but there was different class systems according to which North Face jacket you were wearing. So starting out from the least expensive one was just loser, commoner, middle class, bully, rich family punk, and then last but not least on the top was captain. And this is called the backbone breaker, which is called the 등골 breaker. 등골 means backbone in Korean, and the 등골 breaker was the most expensive one, and it was around $600. So that is quite expensive for a high school student to wear. And of course, since you want to be the captain or the backbone breaker, everybody strive for that. And since these kids are literal high school students, they're not going to make any income out of anything because they have to study and they can't work. So who buys these jackets for them? The families. And these parents literally have to go through such a burden just to get an expensive jacket. And it was literally just a joke, basically, between kids saying oh wow, you have the expensive jacket, or oh, my jacket is the commoner jacket, blah blah blah. But then it became a social problem basically amongst people, because it was on the news, and I guess people took it very seriously. And I guess in some different schools and whatever, they took it really seriously. Kids were bullying each other, being kids basically, and they were confiscating someone's jacket, blah blah blah. And it was literally a social problem back then. And in my school, that didn't happen because I went to an all-girls school, so it didn't really matter. But I guess in other schools, it sort of was a problem. There's this class system based on what jacket you're wearing, and having a hierarchy between what kind of jacket you wear is sort of weird, and it's frowned upon. So, and what started out as this little joke literally became who's wearing what and what's what, and it became a social hierarchy. And the fad did sort of die down, and now getting a jacket is much less expensive. The North Face fad sort of did die out and everything, although it's back now because everything, there's trends come and go, and I guess the trend is back. But yeah, I remember everyone wanting to have the North Face jacket just because it's the cool item to get. And talking about strict dress codes in Korea, back in the 2000s when I was in school, dress code really was strict, and we used to wear uniforms. There still are uniforms in Korea, as you probably know, and you've probably tried from Lotte World and everything. But these school uniforms that you see in the media and that are rented out in Lotte World and stuff, those are more of the pretty types, and it's short skirts and whatever. But the actual uniform back then, and it still is now, is it's like knee length and it covers your knee basically, and it's more of like a muted color, hardly any like plaid or whatever. Usually it's like in a navy color, like blackish color, or like a grayish tone, and it's very modest. And the uniform first started because it was supposed to lessen the financial burden of each family, because buying clothes is expensive and students should not focus on what they're wearing but on their studies and whatever, and it's supposed to be more fair. However, since lots of people wanted to start to wear like more cutesy looking uniforms and stuff, like the Iljin, which is called like the bullies, used to literally shorten their skirts so that it is above knee length, and sort of like the ones that are portrayed in like TV and stuff. In order for the school to prevent other kids from doing it, they literally had strict dress codes. And makeup is not even allowed in Korea, so now I think it is because it's become more liberal and human rights, whatever. But back in the past, only like if you were not a studious person, or like if you were considered a Iljin, would you actually wear makeup. When you go to school in the morning, there would be the 선도부, which is like the school inspection. They would regulate, and they would literally make sure that you're wearing your school uniform correctly, or else they will give you some kind of school penalty. And corporal punishment was legal back then, although it did change when I was in like last year of middle school or something. And corporal punishment was a thing, so if you literally had like a short skirt, or if you didn't wear your tie that was supposed to be in your school uniform, then you would get corporal punishment, which now if you think about it, it's like crazy. It's like, what? You didn't wear the correct tie and you're getting hit by it? Sort of doesn't make sense, but that was what it used to be like. For each school, there are two different types of uniforms. One that is used in the summer, and that is called the habok, and the other is called 동복, which is used in the other winter months and like the fall and spring months. Schools need to make sure that you are wearing your uniform correctly, and for boys, it's always pants, and for girls, it was always skirts. I think now you can like choose between a skirt and pants for girls, but I think back then that was not really a choice, and unless you had like some kind of like medical need or something, you literally had to only wear a skirt. And wearing a skirt in the winter is very cold, because do you know how cold it gets during the winter months in Korea? So wearing thermal tights and that kind of stuff was, a necessity so that you don't freeze to death. And air conditioning wasn't really like that common back then, so of course in the summer months it would be very hot, so the uniform really had some kind of problems when I was in school. So school uniforms usually like they were sold right before the school year started, and mostly I think it was like just small medium corporations that used to sell school uniforms in the past. But in the 2000s, when I was going to school, it was like a trend for like big huge like corporations to get into the school uniform business, because apparently you can make a lot of money on it, because literally every student needs to go to school and they need to buy a school uniform. It's a necessity. So of course, even if they monopolize on it, people have no choice but to buy it. And what they did was they used to use like popular idols and advertise so that the students could actually choose that specific brand. And I remember there were like brands like Elite, School Looks, Michiko London, that kind of brands. And I remember saying like the more expensive the brand is, like the more special like the color or the design or something about it was a bit different. I've heard a sophisticated cool look in school uniforms was supposed to be different according to each brand, which now you think about it, it's like, it's a school uniform, what's there to be special about? But you know how it is as teenagers, you want to have the most special looking one, and the one that makes you look a bit more cool than the other ones. So of course I remember I wanted to get like the one from Elite, because it was like supposedly it was like a more prettier color or something, and I remember it was more expensive than the other like small medium brands, and everyone was trying to get like their hands on that. And of course, later on, it turned out these big, huge corporations were monopolizing the school uniform business, and they were charging so much that it was a literal burden, and buying just regular clothes would be actually more profitable because these school uniforms are so expensive, and so it's like you have no other choice. So it's like the perfect opportunity for businesses and companies to monopolize on, because, and even if they upcharge, like, it's like, what are you gonna do? You have to go to school, so you have to pay anyways. So of course, this also became a social problem, and since the quality of the school uniform decreased later on while the prices were increasing, the government jumped in, they sort of like controlled the prices and everything. So I don't think people have a problem with like school uniform prices now, but back then that was like a huge thing for me and for like millennials. Now going into the strict dress codes that I used to have at school. So for my middle school and high school were together, but they were literally like from the same foundation, but it was just like a different, like, you know how it is. But every school has like a jacket, and they have a sweater vest, and they have like a white shirt, and then like a skirt and like a tie or whatever. During my middle school years, during the winters, parkas and those kind of puffer jackets weren't in, and it wasn't really common to wear that. I don't remember what people used to wear back in the past, but for school you could only wear like a coat, and it had a specific like button in the front, and it looked like a rice cake, so it was named the tteokbokki coat. So tteokbokki is like the rice cake, you know, like the spicy rice cake. Well, it's called the tteokbokki coat because it literally looks like a tteokbokki. Wearing a tteokbokki coat was really the only like option that you had, and of course these were expensive because they were usually made of wool, and only these wool type of coats were allowed by the school rule. So of course, the color had to be black or navy or dark gray. So that's why everybody in Korea basically wears dark colors. It's because it was inevitable back in the past. Even though it is the winter and it's going to be cold, the schools did not allow for hoodies or those kind of different like jackets or whatever, and like puffer jackets and like the thermal stuff wasn't really popular back then, and I don't think it really existed, but back then wearing that kind of stuff was unimaginable, and you would be dress coded. There used to be a regulation for hair as well, and you may be thinking that is so dumb, and I still to this day think it is very dumb, but literally your hair had to be a specific length. So back in my middle school, if my hair length was of now, like if it was touching my shoulders, then I had to put it into a ponytail, but it had to be in a single ponytail, like very straight, no pins, and nothing that needs to be messy, because it has to literally look like that student is very neat and polite and whatever, and you cannot wear your hair in a bun. And you know, like these kind of like the cable style hair ties, this was also not allowed. It was very popular, and it was when it first came out, but this was not allowed in my school because apparently this is considered to be too trendy. I don't know. And if you wanted to have your hair down, then you literally had to cut it into a bob, and it had to be like 3 centimeters below your ear or shorter, and it couldn't be too short, because apparently if it's too short, then you won't look like a girl, I guess. I don't know, the rules were crazy back then if you think about it. Of course, if you had your hair too long and you had it down, then the teachers would literally give you either corporal punishment or they will write you down. And once you have too much like of your like 벌점, which is like the points, but bad points, then you would have to have your parents in or something. I know it's like, because I put my hair down, you're gonna write me down for it. Sort of sounds weird now, but that's what happened. And of course, you can only have your current hair color, which is black. And sometimes, you know how some people literally have, even if they are Asian, they have like a bit like lighter hair, and that's called taeyeon kalsik. Kalsik means brown and taeyeon is natural, so some people have like naturally brown hair, and everyone would say like they would try to sort of bend the rules in a way, and they would get their hair dyed like during the winter or summer vacation, and then they would, you know, dye it back to black. But instead of dyeing it like back to black, they would sort of dye it into like this natural brownish color, natural dark brown color. And when they came back to school, they would say that, oh, 저 자연 갈색이에요, which means I have naturally brown hair. And that of course did not work, because they would write you down and you would have to literally just dye your hair back to black. And as for your hair, of course, it was like a trend back in the days to literally just get your hair dyed for like a few weeks during the summer or winter vacation, and then you would dye it back into black when you went to school. So during the vacation months in the streets, there were kids with like literal crazy like blue hair, like pink hair, and red hair, whatever. And this was when like K-pop idols were like popping off, and everyone wanted to have like the cool girl or like cool boy, like different color hair. So you know how teenagers are. It was inevitable for them, and for them to literally like dye their hair for like a few weeks and then go back to dyeing it black, I think that is literal just, you know, that's dedication. As for the dress code, you literally had to always make sure that your uniform was clean and neat, and you had to tuck in your shirt, or else you would also be, you know, written down for that. And you need to have your skirt under, or at least by your knee length, or else you would be written down. However, lots of kids did choose to alter their skirt so that it was shorter. You would alter it so that it literally is like knee length, but then if you put it up, then it would be above your knee. And sometimes, like if you were an iljin, or like a bully, I guess, then you would literally have two skirts, and one would be like very short and one would be very long. So that too is also dedication, because having two skirts, wow. During the winter months, you can only wear like the black tights or stockings, and they need to be like pantyhose style, not like the knee-high length type of things that you see in K-dramas. No, that was not possible. And if it was like the black type of stockings that were see-through, then you would also be written down. And I remember when I was in middle school, I did not know of that, and I was written down for that, and I was like literally crying, because it was like I didn't know. Because I think I bought it, and then I bought the wrong one, and it turned out to be like see-through, but I didn't want to be late for school, so I had no other choice but to wear it. But then they wrote me down for it, so I was like, I thought it was the end of the world, basically. During the summer months, you do not have to wear stockings, but you need to wear socks. But these socks cannot be like ankle socks, but they need to be literally covering your ankle bone. That was when ankle socks were in, and kids wanted to wear ankle socks, of course, because you know how it's giving millennial core now to wear like ankle socks? Well, that was the trend back then, and everyone wanted to wear ankle socks. However, that was not the case for these school rules. So I remember my middle school used to have like the school socks that they sold at the 매점. 매점 means the school like store. They sell like snacks and stuff, and they used to sell school socks that were of the school regulation. And I remember it was back when I was in the second grade or something, and it just started out of the blue, and it was like, wow. During the spring and fall months, then you would wear your winter uniform, but without black stockings and without a jacket. So you would be wearing your sweater vest, your white shirt, which is your button-up shirt, and then just your skirt. And you need to wear nude color or coffee colored stockings, and they cannot be shiny, and they cannot be too like thick or whatever. Like like, you know, like basic ones, you had to wear that. Your private information didn't really matter, so literally you had your name tag sewn onto your uniform, and the whole world could see your name. But the name tag, there were 3 different colors for each school, and the color of the name tag would show what grade you were in. I think a few years after I graduated, like, people, you know, sort of realized that it was unsafe, because like people could literally just see your name and everything, and it's related to personal information. So the name tags were changed into like the pin types that you know. And you know how sometimes there are like K-pop idol merchandise that shows like the name and stuff that's in like a pin? That is literally the type of name tags that they changed it to, and it's the ones that you can actually clip on and then clip off when you're out in the streets, because personal information. But back when I was in school, that kind of thing was not thought about, so the whole world could see my name, and it wasn't really much of a problem back then, but now I think it is. Of course there were rules for shoes. You couldn't wear just any type of shoes, and back then Mary Jane's was like the thing to do for school students. And when you first got into a school, it was tradition, I guess, for the family members to gift the student new shoes, but like Mary Jane's, or like kudu as we would say, and they were expensive, I remember, and they were not affordable, but it might have been a bit of a burden to some families, but it was like the thing to do, and it was like mandatory basically to wear like sort of like a loafer type of Mary Jane's. There wasn't a huge variety of shoes. Now there's a huge variety of shoes, and there's different types of brands and everything, but this was back in the 2000s when like imported goods wasn't really like that huge. The type of shoe that you can wear at school was sort of like, it was a small pool basically, because during the winter months you can only wear black shoes, but they couldn't be like colorful. There couldn't be a lot of color in it. And so I remember like every other student wore black Converse sneakers, and they had to be the low top ones and not the high top ones, or else you would be written down. And during the summer months you had to wear either like the Mary Jane loafers, or you had to wear sneakers that were white. And of course Converse were like the most popular ones, and there were also some kids that wore Keds as well, because it was also like a canvas material. You know how it is being a kid back then. You wanted to have like the most trendiest one without breaking the rules, so it was like the best thing you could do without breaking the rules. But of course during high school, like I could wear different color shoes, sneakers, and they used to be all Converse as well. So I remember I used to buy Converse in every other color because I was obsessed. Because I was so, back when I was in middle school, I hated how I could only wear black or white sneakers. So I remember like having every other different color Converse sneakers. And Converse was popular back then when I was in high school and middle school, so you could buy like Nikes and stuff, but Nike wasn't as popular. And as for backpacks, you need to have a backpack, like that's a classic backpack with 2 straps that you can lug onto your back. And in middle school, it used to be only just a solid color, and I remember I used to have like some kind of like JanSport one, but it used to be just one color, and it couldn't be like a colorful design. But this changed in high school because it was more liberal, and I guess people sort of were like, having regulations is stupid. Like, just because you have a striped backpack doesn't mean that that kid is gonna not behave or anything, which, you know, is totally true. So in high school, I remember that I didn't have to like tie my hair like at this length, although it was suggested that you do tie your hair, which, you know, if you think about it now, what does tying your hair have to do with how good that student is gonna behave and how much that person's gonna study, if you get what I mean? I mean, it's like, it's dumb if you think about it now. But thankfully now that kind of stuff is all gone. So after school, of course, when we went to Hagwon, then you don't have to wear like school uniforms, so kids went all out. And wearing Abercrombie and Fitch or Hollister back then was popular because there wasn't an actual store, but it meant that you went overseas, so lots of kids like literally bought Abercrombie and Fitch or Hollister clothes, and then they wore it after school before they went to Hagwon, and at Hagwon they would like flaunt it out. So that's sort of cute if you think about it now. But yeah, having the latest trend and whatever was popular back then, and it still is popular. So I totally get why kids are very sensitive to fashion and trends. So this is my final look, and I hope you enjoyed my story of what it was like being a student back in the early 2000s. So yeah, I'm gonna make this a series, so please let me know if you enjoyed it, and if you liked my video, please make sure to like and comment and subscribe. So bye.